The fabric tore before she could brace for it. Sergeant First Class Elena Thompson felt the stitches give way at her shoulder, felt the sun-hot air rush against skin that had been covered a moment before, and heard, worse than the tearing itself, the silence that fell over 40 soldiers standing in formation behind her. First Sergeant Aldrich Marlowe's fist was still closed around the patch he had just ripped from her uniform, his face inches from hers, his voice a raw, furious thing that echoed off the barracks walls. She did not flinch. She had learned, long ago, that flinching only fed men like this. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Elena had worn that patch for 6 years. It was not decoration. It was proof. Proof of a unit she had bled for. Proof of a rank she had earned twice as hard as most of the men who now stood watching her humiliation with their jaws tight and their eyes fixed somewhere just past her shoulder, unwilling to meet her gaze. Marlowe had never liked her. Not since the day she'd questioned a training protocol in front of the battalion commander and been right. Not since she'd been promoted over 2 men he'd personally recommended. This morning, in front of the entire company, he had finally found his excuse. A technicality, a supposed uniform violation, dredged up and inflated until it justified what no regulation actually permitted. He wanted her broken. He wanted it public. She thought about the letter in her footlocker, the one from her father, a retired command sergeant major, who'd told her before she shipped out the first time. They will try to make you smaller, so you stop taking up space they think isn't yours. She thought about that now, standing there with a bare patch of olive drab where her identity used to be, her jaw locked, her hands trembling at her sides, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of not giving him the reaction he wanted. The wind moved through the flagpole lines, and somewhere behind the crowd, a young private shifted his weight, the gravel crunching under his boot loud enough to feel like thunder in the stillness. Dust drifted gold in the morning light between them. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared. She thought she'd stand there and take it, the way she always had. She was wrong. Because at that exact moment, the phone rang inside the orderly room. A hard, insistent ring that cut through the open door and carried across the yard. A young specialist answered it, and within seconds his face changed. He said yes, sir 3 times in rapid succession, then bolted outside, phone cradled against his shoulder, cord stretched taut, his eyes wide as he searched the crowd for the 2 men at its center. First Sergeant, he called out, and something in his voice made even Marlowe go still. Command's on the line. They want to speak to you. Now. Marlowe's hand did not open right away. For a moment he simply stood there, the torn patch still balled in his fist, watching the specialist approach with the same suspicion he'd shown Elena for years, as though the world itself might be conspiring against him. Then, muttering something under his breath, he crossed the yard and took the receiver. The soldiers around Elena exchanged glances. Someone whispered, barely audible, "What is happening?" Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Only that whatever was being said on that call was draining the color from Marlowe's face in real time. She stood alone in the center of the formation, patchless, exposed, and for the first time all morning, unsure. Had someone seen? Had someone reported it before it even finished happening? Or was this simply coincidence, cruel timing that would change nothing? Uncertainty is its own kind of ache, and she felt it settle into her chest as she waited. When Marlowe returned, the phone left dangling behind him, his stride had lost its swagger. He walked back across that yard like a man 20 years older, and when he stopped in front of Elena, he did not look at her face. He looked at the patch still crumpled in his hand. "Command," he said, his voice stripped of its earlier venom, "has ordered immediate restoration." He swallowed. "You're to be reinstated. Effective now." A murmur rippled through the formation. Disbelief. Then something warmer, something like relief, spreading shoulder to shoulder until it became a low, collective exhale. One soldier near the back began to clap, hesitant at first, and then the sound caught, soldier after soldier joining until the yard that had been silent with shame was now full of something entirely different. This is the moment worth sitting with, not the punishment, not even the reversal, but the question underneath it. How many people, in how many rooms, have had something taken from them unjustly, with no phone call coming to save them? Justice does not always arrive. Elena knew this better than anyone. That is precisely why, when it did arrive, she did not smile in triumph. She simply reached out, took the patch from Marlowe's open hand, and held it a moment before pressing it back against her shoulder where it belonged. She did not need his apology. She only needed her name back. That evening, as the flag came down over Fort Hawthorne and the last light turned the barracks gold, Elena stood a little apart from the others, patch restored, dog tags catching the fading sun. She thought of her father's words again and understood them differently now. Some people spend their whole careers trying to make you smaller. But somewhere, someone is always watching who still believes you deserve to take up the space you earned. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And sometimes, in the space between a torn patch and a restored one, we find out exactly who we always were. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what part stayed with you the longest. And if you believe justice always finds a way back to those who deserve it, hit subscribe, because we have so many more stories like Elena's still to tell.